men still permitted to be men? Does Yah want us to be men? Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 1, the double Torah portion, Matot, Masei, tribes and journeys. Let's go to the book of Bamidbar, or Numbers, chapter number 30, verses 1 and 2. And Moshe spoke to the heads of the tribes, that is, to the Matot, concerning the children of Israel, saying, this is the word which Yahweh has commanded. This is a command, not a requirement merely or a suggestion. It is his command to us. When a man vows a vow to Yahweh, or swears an oath to bind himself by some agreement, he does not break his word. He does according to all that comes out of his mouth. Today we're going to deal with men. Tomorrow we'll deal with women and the need of men to be involved in a woman's vow before Yah. The first time that this idea of a vow being taken is found in the book of Bereshit, or Genesis chapter 28, where Yaakov says, because you are with me and you're going to take care of me, you're going to provide for me my needs when I come back to this place and to my father's house in peace, the standing column that I've set up before you will become the house of Elohim. Yaakov did realize that in part, and we, his spiritual and physical and spiritual descendants, will fulfill that vow and see in the house of Yahweh constructed on that same site. So a vow, it may take a while, but it is to be kept. I was raised by a father who came from a culture and a generation that said a man is only as good as his word. It didn't matter if you shook hands or not. It didn't matter if you signed a contract or not. If it came out of your mouth and you made a promise to your own hurt, to great inconvenience if necessary, against all other explanations, you kept your word. The last thing that a man of that generation wanted to be known as is a man who would not keep his word. That was passed down to me, and I strive to have the same integrity. If you have given your word, you are accountable. I got a feeling that there are going to be a lot of people who had non-contractual agreements that they reneged on, stand before their Creator, have to yet give an account. May not be a good day. But let's go to the idea that we opened up with, men. We are in our society, the world's over, suffering under a dilemma, under a social plague that I would call personally, and I'm going to try to say this word correctly, the demasculinization of men. That is, a man may not be able to choose not to be born male, as horrible as that is perceived to be. But even if you are born a male, you should not be a man. You should not live your life with a masculine quality about it. Masculinity is perceived as offensive, abusive, overtly controlling, and a long list of other negative words. We won't waste time on that. It is also, at times, the feminization of men. That is, in order for a man to fit better in society, he needs to take on feminine qualities. What does Yah think? Everything that is masculine, and righteously so, everything that is feminine, and righteously so, has the same origin. It's from Yahweh. He created us male and female, masculine and feminine. Now, there are abuses of those qualities on both sides. But that which is rightly masculine and rightly feminine is pure and set apart, and it's a good quality of life. My heart to express here today is that men be men. That is, that we be men of renown, men of integrity, men of quality, men of right standing, men who live a life exhibiting characteristics that others should take up and follow after. I recognize that many of you in the viewing audience do not have a positive male masculine role model that you can draw from. I had probably the best of my generation or his generation. My dad was an all-star righteous man. A lot of people didn't have that. And for that I grieve. And it provokes me to be a man of integrity and try to fill up the slack for the men who failed to walk as they should walk. The first issue that we want to deal with today is what comes out of your mouth. Yah is saying here, when you make a promise, when you give your word, when you take on a vow, whatever you have to do, you keep that vow. We call it locker room talk or men talk, where we're gruff, coarse, crude, vulgar at times in words. These things, Rav Shul says, should not be. They shouldn't be coming out of your mouth. Righteousness and unrighteousness should not come out of the same source. It's been depicted in old-time movies and entertainments that men would be jesting coarsely and talking roughly, and then a woman would come onto the scene and everyone would lower their voice or change the tone of their speech, and they would tip their hat and they would show a sense of courtesy and politeness, unless they were perceived as a very vulgar and lewd man, that they didn't care. Unfortunately, in our world societies now, men and women both speak crudely, lewdly, vulgar with their language, and no one blushes. No one thinks twice about it. Yah says, I want my men to be men of integrity, that if they give their word, they're going to keep their word. This is a model behavior before our families. And secondly, men need to lead their homes correctly. I understand there's a lot of teaching about the perceived doctrine of role reversal, that women should be ahead. I'm not going down that trail. I disagree with it. Just leave it at that. Men need to be men who are accountable for their homes. Now, a wife may do certain things better than a man. If she's better at keeping the books and paying bills on time and that kind of thing, as my wife is, that's a skill set that she has a better quality at than I do. That's a role that she has taken. But I'm accountable. However the house turns out, however the family goes, whatever takes place, ultimately the head of the house, the man, is accountable. Whether he delegates to someone else or not, he's accountable. Something else then that we need to be aware of is that men, real men, are men of prayer. Yeshua was a man of prayer. The prophets were all men of prayer. Those who walked powerfully before Yah doing signs, wonders, and miracles were men of prayer. There's nothing any more manly than a man of earthly dust, filled with the breath of the Creator, standing between heaven and earth and connecting the two realms by his intercessions and his prayers. Even if it involves tears, especially if it involves tears, and that he's crying out for Yah to intervene in the issues of life. Another realm, area that a man needs to lead in is worship. It is a very masculine, manly thing for a man to lift his hands to his Creator and to offer unto him worship, acknowledging who the King is. If tears rolls down his face, wonderful. That's not a sissy or feminine thing. That is a manly thing. If men dance as David danced, that's a manly thing. There is warfare in a man dancing. I dare anybody to stand up before King David in the kingdom and challenge him about the masculinity that he exhibited when he danced, that it was a sissy thing. Let me know how that turns out. Men need to worship, they need to pray, they need to lead their homes. Men need to be tender and compassionate toward their family members. Any man can be gruff and aggressive and abusive. It takes a real man to know how to be gentle and soft-spoken and cause his family to want to gather around and listen to what the words he has to say. We talk about men today, we'll discuss the women tomorrow. Till then, shalom.